Hi everyone, welcome to the accumulation data analysis for 14th of May. Today was quite a good day. All the indices were up, especially the small cap index. So let's see what the data is telling us and also what the charts are telling us so that we can play these markets in the coming days, right? So let's get started. We'll start with the India VIX. So India VIX, after rallying almost like 100% from, let's say, a level of 10, 12 to almost 22 today, it has finally kind of given us a shooting star candlestick pattern, which is a bearish reversal one, right? So chances are it might have a small pullback before it continues moving higher, or this can be a uh, top as well. That only time will tell. But looking at this, maybe it can come back to retest this breakout that happened around 16.5, and probably from there again go up as we get closer to the June 4th result, right? So let's see what the FII DI are doing. So the FIs, the today's equity, now the FNO data is out, but yesterday in the video I told you that I will analyze what the FNO data is telling us. So in the FIs, in the futures space, are kind of short on both the indices, right? Even the option data is kind of telling us that there is a huge open interest in puts, right? So even the FIs are not really comfortable. Probably they are a little jittery before the results that come in on June 4th. That is why we are seeing continuous selling also. And even the FNO data tells us that they are on the short side, right? So, but what I'm seeing is in stock specific future bets, they are bullish on different stocks. So on the index level, they are kind of short, but specific stocks, even they are kind of playing for an up move as well. Okay, so this is about the FIIs, what they are really doing in the market as of now. So let's get to the data. So the large cap accumulation is quite low today, right? Probably the lowest in last many days, right? So there is no real money kind of coming into these large caps, which we can be really bullish about, right? So I mean, even the DIS seem to be like a little on the lower side today. Let's see once the data is out what exactly happened. But from the data, that is not the buy sell figure, but from the stock specific data, what I'm getting is it is on a lower side. So only once the number is out, we'll be able to figure out whether it was really lower or on an index level it was on a higher side, right? So intraday, the Nifty almost for the whole day kind of was up 0.5%. So if you look at what it did intraday, kind of went sideways after opening around the same levels where it closed, right? It just went sideways, and in the second half, it kind of went up and again came back down to close somewhere around that 22,217 mark. So almost a 100% kind of upside we saw on the Nifty. Now coming to the daily chart, so it has finally entered the parallel channel. So looks like probably a bottom is in place for the Nifty, and maybe if the data kind of improves, we can move higher. But looking at what how the FIs have positioned themselves, right? It is kind of looking like a very tricky situation. If the VIX kind of moves higher, then again we'll see selling pressure. But let's say if the VIX start to cool off, definitely we are going to go much higher on the Nifty, right? So after a very strong hammer, that is a bullish reversal that we saw, there is a continuation candle that we are seeing today. And since it has come back into that parallel channel, we can be sure that there might be still more steam left with the bulls as the VIX also cools off. So the best performing sector today was the Nifty Metal Index, almost up 2.7%. And if you look at the daily chart, right, it is closing at the highest level ever, right? So which is quite a bullish sign. So this is probably because the Chinese economy is also kind of showing signs of recovery, and people are betting on that because China is still the largest consumer of most of these commodities. So they are betting on that particular thing. Let's see and how this rally turns out, because if US goes under in a few months, then even the Chinese economy will start struggling. So quite an interesting thing that is developing in the metal sector. Now coming to Bank Nifty, like I was telling you yesterday, after a strong reversal, usually there will be a follow through. So we saw that follow through today, although not much, hardly like 100, 150 points, right? Here also the data isn't that great, even if you see the volumes on the low side, right? So volume isn't great. So usually if the volumes are pretty good at the lower levels, then when the reversal happens, then we can be sure that the bulls are gaining control. But since that is not happening, we can't be really sure. Maybe it's just a bounce before we go even lower, right? So then coming to the mid cap analysis, the mid cap accumulation continues to go even lower, although there was like a very strong up move that we saw on the index. So I'll go to the index chart, almost a percent kind of an up move that we saw, now closing in on the resistance that is there around that 50,360. So here it is kind of little tricky. The data is not supporting, but we are moving higher. So that means money is not flowing into all stocks. Maybe few stocks are just moving up because of the technical bounce, but few stocks the big guys are also interested in. So the big guys have become choosy, right? So they are not putting their money in every stock, where very few names that they are putting their money in. So usually in such conditions, it makes sense to kind of buy those which the big guys are also buying, because there is a margin of safety there, right? Other stocks may be just having a technical bounce, which they do after a decent drop, right? But the rally fizzles out in such names eventually, right? But the structure looks pretty decent. If you look at the index, what it has done, a higher high, higher low kind of structure is still maintained in the mid cap index, right? So but I would suggest be stock specific instead of kind of trying to buy everything that is kind of moving up. Now coming to the small cap accumulation, so here it is the lowest in the chart, right? So in the whole of, let's say, March, April, May, right? This one, the data that is there today for the small cap index is kind of very low. Although the index was the best performer today, like up 2% amongst the Nifty, even the mid cap. So this was the best, and even it kind of crossed that resistance line around that 16,226. But the data isn't that strong. And also, if you look at Wyckoff's distribution pattern, right? It is looking similar to that until we kind of cross that 17,200 mark. I would not be really that bullish on the small cap index, because this is a classic distribution pattern wherein the in a range, probably a 10%, 15% range, the index continues to move as the big guys also exit most of the stocks, right? So although the data, I mean the distribution was not that strong, so it need not be like, on a few days the distribution comes in. It can be like on, let's say, a particular day one guy is kind of getting out, then on the next day a few others are getting out. So we need not see like very high distribution coming on all the days. Stock specific distribution might keep on happening in most of the stocks, and then eventually everything starts moving lower, because this pattern what we are seeing, if you open a Wyckoff distribution thing, I had even made a video on that. It's a classic pattern for distribution, right? But the only good thing is, since we are above that 30 WMA line, we can still be like bullish. But let's say if the 30 WMA line starts to become flattish, then we will be really, I mean, it would be a concern, because probably we are very close to the end of this up move in the small cap index. So the conclusion is, although the large caps kind of moved higher, the data isn't that strong. Even the FIIs are kind of short on that, right? And India VIX cooling off is a positive for the large cap stocks. So the FNO data, index level bearish, stock specific, they are having bullish bets there. Broader market, both the indices moved higher, but the overall accumulation isn't that great. So you'd want to back those stocks where the data is also good and are moving higher, because those are the ones which can kind of move even further whereas the others, the rally might fizzle out, right? So this is what I feel about the markets for the coming days, right? Maybe this up move can even continue for a few more days, but I would suggest you kind of backing those names where the data is really good, right? So nothing to really worry about, although the data is kind of on the lower side, but because there was no much distribution at the top, right? So even with like little accumulation also, it is kind of moving higher. But don't just blindly buy anything, buy the ones where the data is also very strong. Hopefully this helps you in tomorrow's video.